Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the SJPC cast. Today you have Skylar and
Keyan.
Keyan, our good friend Keyan. You know him, you love him. He's been on several times with us, and he's actually got some really interesting stuff to talk about today. So this is a big week for both the city and county at the meetings. This is big budget deciding week. So if you've been following along, you know that we've been in like a basically a 2 month process now of here's what the departments think, and here's there's been just a million discussions about how should we do the budget. And tomorrow, as we're recording this tomorrow, they are going to be deciding on on adopting a proposed budget. So that's what Keon is on to talk with us about a little bit. But before we get in that, there are also some other items that I want to run you through that are coming up. Actually, this evening at 5:30 p.m., the Community Police Review Commission will be meeting. We flagged three items on this. We flagged one as just a staff update from SAC PD. Another is basically the Office of Public Safety and Accountability is giving that kind of an overview of just what their program is, what they do, which is important because as we're going to note later in the budget discussions, part of the way that we are plugging the hole with the deficit is eliminating over a third of the staffing for the Office of Public Safety and Accountability, or OPSA, as we'll be referring to them, which is a real big bummer. Also, kind of works in tandem with this next item that we flagged, item 7, which is a Community Police Review Commission letter regarding proposed reduction in commission meetings. So I am still doing a little bit of research on this as to like exactly what the timeline around this is and when and or if there will be room for further advocacy for us to back the commission on this. But basically, the mayor and council are proposing to cut the amount of Police Review Commission meetings in half, and only have half of the amount that they have now. The Police Review Commission is not into this idea and has penned a letter basically making their argument for why the city should not cut those meetings. So kind of in tandem here, the theme of a lot of this is going to be we are gutting the oversight on the city level, and also vastly reducing the effectiveness of oversight on the commission and kind of more citizen level, which are two things that should alarm you if you are not completely sitting there with your mouth full of boots, which I'm assuming you're not if you're listening to this program. Anyway, so that's kind of that. We'll leave that for now, but we will be coming back to some of that in a minute. At the 2 p.m. meeting, there's an interesting item happening. It's on consent. It's item 7. It's the City of Sacramento investment policy and delegation of investment authority to the city treasurer. And what the focus of this is, as far as we are concerned, is that the council is setting a new kind of list of priorities based on ethical investment practices, and basically saying that we will not we're going to disinvest in interests that do X, Y, and Z. And for like the list is like manufacturing of tobacco or tobacco related products, fossil fuel companies, companies found to have committed or enabled severe violations of human rights or international humanitarian laws. Production of chemical or biological war weapons or bombs, production of automatic or semi-automatic rifles, mass incarceration and detention, immigration detention, or surveillance technology. So basically, this is the city being like, we are going to disinvest in all of these things, which is good because it ultimately serves to take money away from those sources, but it also creates an opportunity for the city to reinvest that money into things that actually lift Sacramento communities up. So this is in the language. It looks like it's likely to pass. There is our friends at Reinvest Sac are trying to organize some advocacy around this. So if you're around at 2 o'clock, you can join them in coming to support the passage of this disinvestment item, which I think is just a great opportunity. So if you're going to be around, please join us for that. And if you're going to be there at the 2 o'clock meeting, there's also a couple of informational items we flagged. They'll be doing the annual reports for the Housing Trust Fund Ordinance, the Mixed Income Housing Ordinance, the Home Investment Partnerships Program, Permanent Location Housing Allocation, State Local Housing Trust Fund, Residential Hotel Unit Withdrawal, Conversion, and Demolition Ordinance. These are basically all programs that the city funds through various fees, interest, loan repayments, state allocations. They function to provide assistance for people who are experiencing housing insecurity or homelessness. So basically, they're just going to kind of be like, here's the money that we got to do all this. Here's how we raised it. This is what we did with it. And hopefully, this is all the new stuff that we're now looking to do with it. Now that a lot of these developments are in development. So that will be mostly informational. Same with the item that we had on the 25th that was at Budget and Audit. That was the audit of the city employees' workforce diversity and salary trends that we touched on a little bit here back when we were back on that week. That's going to be in front of the full council, and that's basically just sort of a review of like demographic breakdowns of who works for the city, how much do they make, what positions are they in based on age, race, gender, sexual preference. They kind of break all of that down, and it's pretty interesting. And I will say that like it's obvious that the city has been doing some work in this area if you look at the numbers, but it's also obvious that the city has quite a ways to go, particularly in terms of the gender pay gap, which is still an issue at the city of Sacramento and apparently everywhere else in the fucking world still as well. So that will also be something to pay attention to if you are already there at the 2 o'clock with our friends from Reinvest Sac. Then at 5 p.m., we have the only item on the agenda is the adoption of the operating budget and the capital improvement plan. So I'm going to leave that for now because I'm going to come back and give that one to Keyan. But before we do that, we also have stuff going on at the county. The county will be doing their budget process Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So theirs is a 3-day thing, or at least that's how it's scheduled. I don't know if they'll go for the entire 3 days, but as of right now, they're set to review their budget and their capital improvement program Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But on Tuesday, two items that we flagged that are not related to those are item 7, which is to adopt a resolution authorizing county officials to accept donations and establishing standards for the acceptance of donations. And basically, this item makes it easier for county officials and like kind of widens the net for who is allowed to accept donations and gifts, and raises the amount on how much monetary value in these donations and gifts can be accepted before it has to go to the board of supervisors to like be reported to anybody, basically. Which could this be a perfectly harmless update that clears away red tape for departments to accept donations for food or clothing for distribution to people who need them? Sure. Could it also be a way to streamline county officials' abilities to easily accept bribes? Also, yes. So who knows what that will be worth. I thought it was worth just kind of flagging. They're also going to be going over item 70 will be the 2026 point in time count results. So this information is already accessible, and you probably have already seen a lot of it. If you're unfamiliar with the point in time count, it's 2 days that we do every 2 years where SAC Steps Forward kind of runs this program in which people go out into the county and to every corner of the county they can find, and basically count every unhoused person they find, and then kind of talk to them to try and get demographic data that kind of gives us a look into how many people are unhoused in Sacramento County at this moment. How many of them are men as opposed to women? How many of them are black? How many of them are Mexican? How many are white? Like just to kind of give us an idea of how many people are experiencing this and who they are. So that is a thing. We're getting the numbers back. The numbers are already out. Apparently, we're up 12% from 2 years ago. It also should be mentioned that every time these numbers come out, everybody who works in homeless services and everybody experiencing homelessness goes like, that sounds pretty low, pretty inaccurate to me. So you got to take these things with a grain of salt, because there is also the very, very real possibility that the point in time count is also being co-opted by the county and the city to kind of rehabilitate their image as people who are like actually taking care of this program, when in fact they are not doing a lot of things that they could be doing to make that better. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Like I said, then for the next 3 days they'll be doing their budget deliberations and their kind of their deliberation around their 5-year capital improvement plan. Um, but anyway, like I said, I'll preface this. I want to pass it off to Keyan. Um, so one of the ways that the city is plugging the deficit, which was $62 million, one of the ways they found to do that was to get rid of a bunch of the positions in the Office of Public Safety and Accountability, which is basically that program exists just so that you have somebody to call if like you are a victim of police brutality or other misconduct. So they look into those cases. I'll let kind of Keyan's got a better idea of exactly kind of the work that they do, but what we do not want is for them to lay a bunch of those folks off, and that is what is they're getting ready to do at the thing tomorrow. It's especially annoying because, as Keyan is about to explain to us, we actually don't have to get rid of any of these. There are a number of different options that we have that don't require us to get rid of anybody who works for the city of Sacramento. Keyan, can you give us kind of a rundown on the work that you've done here and kind of a little bit of an explanation about like this plan that you have?
So, appreciate the time, Skylar. And just to lay out, like what the bottom line is up front, like, the city of Sacramento has been facing a more than $66 million structural deficit going into fiscal year 2026-27. And the proposed budget is seeking to resolve this deficit to start the year in the with a balanced budget by eliminating several laying off basically city staff positions and reducing both community meetings, community services like community ambassadors, as well as more than $1 million in cuts to homeless services. While the city has made has managed to save on some of these layoffs, particularly in the area of park maintenance, none of this actually has to happen. This is, these are people's livelihoods that are set to be cut off. Not only that, but also the basic necessities and services that are going to our unhoused neighbors who have nowhere to go and are increasingly facing even more dire straits year after year. Hundreds of people actually dying on the street. And this, rather than taking from areas that where we have plenty of money, we're cutting from these community services and homeless services. And what I've done, what's in the budget documents is particularly startling. What I've basically identified are a set of savings where we can actually preserve all of these positions, the OPSA, police oversight, city commission meetings, community ambassadors, as well as homelessness service spending, while also maintaining the mayor and council's priority community programs that they've identified, such as waiting pools, summer at City Hall, economic development projects up in District 2 in North Sacramento area, and they can be done without making any layoffs, any homeless service cuts, and without eliminating and with only eliminating vacant positions which have not been filled with an actual person, with a new hire, in more than a year. And all what I've done is create 3 scenarios where we can make incremental cuts as per the city council purview that draw exclusively from identified city positions that have been vacant for more than 365 days. And using a combination of unused budget reduction strategies that do not require eliminating any filled staff positions. because what I found from the council, from the city staff reports, going back to late February, is startling. It's outrageous. Is that, like, when we look at the vacancy data that's available in these scenarios and in city staff reports, the mayor and city council are essentially leaving more than $90 million on the table in unspent annual compensation for more than 1,133 unfilled city staff positions, with at least 296 of these positions having been vacant for more than a year, representing nearly 23, actually 20, nearly $24 million in just wasteful compensation that the city is just choosing not to spend.
So wait, hang on real quick. So what you're saying is that these vacancies are money that is set aside and is part of the budget, but it's for like the idea that maybe we will hire somebody, but we have not actually hired anybody there, right? So it's like if we do eventually want to hire somebody, this is the money that we would pay them. But there are several of these where we've just set this part of the budget aside for like more than a year
Yeah,
without hiring anybody. And so we're getting ready to like actually fire people rather than reallocate some of this money that we aren't actually even spending.
correct. Like every year when the council sets a department's budget, they are allotted a specific number of full-time equivalent hours, which is like, the number of of hours, of full, of people working full-time. Which is not, is much lower than the number of actual positions there are, because some of these positions are temporary. They might be seasonal or whatnot, and not like necessarily working full time. They might be part time. And what oftentimes gets buried in this a lot of times is like how, when those positions go unfilled, the money that is allocated to, for those positions, essentially is just there for, it's just unused and is available for the mayor and council to allocate to other areas that need it, such as these, this structural deficit. But what we have seen, for year after year, is empty positions. These savings from these vacancies essentially just going untouched, because the city council and the mayor, for whatever reason, which, I mean, I think you and I can easily name why that is, are just too afraid to even touch that, because there are powerful lobby interests, particularly organizations like the Sacramento Police Officers Association, the California Apartment Association, and other labor unions like the Sacramento Area Firefighters, Local 522, that would be pissed that they're not getting, they're not able to use these untapped funds for things like their overtime, which is among police and fire department, continues to exceed their allotted budgets year after year.
But it doesn't matter because they can pad it with this money that they just kind of get for all these positions that they then do not fill and can use that money for whatever they want.
Right. And let's put this to scale, of this 1,100 empty positions, the police department alone accounts for over 222 of those vacancies, which is about 20% of all of the citywide vacancies.
Do you have numbers offhand for exactly how much money that is?
Yeah, I mean that comes out to a total of $26 million.
Oh. So that gets us about that plugs about a third of the budget right there, just in salaries that we don't actually have anybody to give the money to.
Right, exactly. And 86 of those 222 vacancies have been empty, alone have been vacant for more than a year. And those positions alone are worth $8 million. The fire department is the next highest number of vacancies, with carries over 103 vacant positions in this current year, including 25 fire recruit positions that are categorized as covering a non-budgeted position, which according to the city's finance department is essentially a fund, like, a position like that is funding an actual filled position, which we'll get to that in a minute. But those positions, those fire recruit positions alone, have been vacant for 5 years actually, since they haven't been filled by a person since July 1st, 2021. So, like, the key question that I think folks should be raising this Tuesday at City Council as they're talking about adopting this budget and making these horrible, insane cuts is, what is the fiscal practicality and legality of departments maintaining these like non-budgeted positions using these vacancies? And like
Right.
like I can get into it like really quick. It's like, of the city's like 82 non-budgeted positions, according to city staff documents, 76 of them belong to the police and fire department. Departments that claim these vacancies are necessary to address a staffing crisis. But that justification like never gets scrutinized by by the majority of city council, save for like, one or two folks on there. If police and fire are genuinely struggling to fill positions, why have 13 fire recruit slots sat vacant since since 2021, nearly 5 full years, representing double the department's authorized fire recruitment complement? What incentive exists to ever fill them? And the answer may be that there simply isn't one. If when I was on the Sacramento Community Police Review Commission, and this was corroborated by the Sacramento Bee last year, only a small number of police officers are actually receiving overtime pay, and they are exceeding over 70%, in some cases 100%, meaning they're doubling their base salaries, while hundreds of other department staff receive little or no overtime.
Right.
For these positions,
or are just getting the axe when the budget rolls around, right?
Right, exactly. And only the thing is, only police and fire have actually used so much of these overtimes and are consistently going over, over their allotted overtime budgets, which is not listed in the in these current budget documents. It's like you have to PRA request them, or have city council members request them during these budget hearings, which it's it's conspicuous. It's very suspicious how they didn't even request overtime numbers, expenditure reports like they did the last 2 years in a row. But going to this, maintaining these unfilled positions isn't just a staffing inconvenience. It's also it also creates a mechanism that allows police and fire to perpetually exceed their overtime budgets by using vacancies to justify the overtime in the first place. And this alone just creates a self-reinforcing cycle where they can claim a staffing crisis, leave positions unfilled, pay existing staff premium overtime to cover those the gap, and then point to the ongoing shortage as proof that more resources are needed. So fill the vacancies and the overtime revenue disappears.
Right.
And from a legal standpoint, positions carried for years without active recruitment raises some serious questions about the ethics of doing such things. Real vacancies about whether vacancy savings are actually being properly returned to the general fund, whether the authorized complement is actually being accurately reported to mayor and council in the first place, and whether what is being called a staffing crisis is really just a budget raising gimmick.
Right. Or just kind of this loophole that these departments have to just basically get these slush funds on top of the the huge slice of the general fund that they already get every year, which would already be egregious, but especially as we're coming into now a conversation where we're going to be like, oh, well, we're just going to cut all the oversight department. We're going to cut all the oversight for the police department because we have this big budget deficit that we're stuck in. And we're just going to get rid of we're going to make cuts to homeless services and whatnot. I'm going to say that is difficult to justify is the language that I will use around that.
Yeah, I'll be even more direct about it. It is 100% unjustified. It makes no fiscal or practical sense to cut homeless services and other community things like the ambassador program, the community ambassador stipends, which are only $108,000. Recreation swim hours, which are only 460, like over $460,000. Wading pools, which are $117,000. Like when we have literally over $90 million of savings, 34 million of which is sitting like in the police department's budget for 200, like for over 200 vacant positions, you know. And these like going back to these like alternative savings, what I've been able to like calculate out is like, identifying these savings, alternative saving sources that don't require all like such painful cuts, completely avoid staff layoffs, completely avoid homeless service cuts, and then like only cut the department positions that have been vacant for over a year. And it comes out to like all of these programs that have been identified by council and like, the community as important, amount to $9.1 million, a little over $9.1 million of target savings to cut through. What these three scenarios that I've been able to identify come out to, if you like, which add up progressively when you start from like, tier one to tier two, and then adding in tier, like, and then tier three, it comes out to $9.2 million. So like, there's actually surplus left over.
Covers the whole thing plus.
Right.
Yeah.
And and at the end of the day, just with these three scenarios, the remaining vacancies after you use those scenarios still has over 1,000, like 1,027 empty positions that the city can then wrangle with like at the next structural the next budget deficit, which is going to be even higher next year. I think it's projected to be out like to what, $88 million. Like
wonderful.
Yeah, like we don't have to do this. We don't have to cut services to people who are dying by the hundreds year after year.
We are choosing to do that because we don't want to have a difficult conversation with emergency services.
Right.
That shouldn't be a difficult conversation. That should not be a hard discussion to have. But welcome to the city of Sacramento in 2026. Keyan, thank you so much. I think we're running low on time. Thank you so much for coming on. So this document that you have, I am going to link this in the show notes and make sure that we plaster this everywhere so that if you're listening to this, I will make sure that you can find this. It's incredibly well done work. It's super easy to parse and read and understand. Let's bring this shit to council tomorrow. And it's really a no-brainer. There's really no reason why we are cutting these services that are so badly needed to preserve these vacancy positions that clearly, after years of not being used, are not super badly needed. So anyway, I think that's good for now. Let's leave it there. But Keyan, I really appreciate your time, man. Thank you. And also thank you for just doing the work in general, putting this together and crunching it down and making it easy for us to understand and advocate with, man. Really appreciate you.
Anytime, Skylar. Thanks for having me on.
All right, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.